And as those sounds fade out, we might not be able to listen to them that much longer. Ladies and listeners, it's Land of Hope and Glory. Well, we'll see what happens to that one when they get their teeth into it. Speaking of new and thrusting and modern ideas, we've got George Jessup in the studio. And now, George, you seem to think I'm some kind of an expert on something. What could that possibly be?
I'm writing a book. It's going to be an oral history of the British working men's clubs. And I was as surprised as I was delighted to hear that you had been a regular and enthusiastic and very well-regarded stand-up comedian. The book is going to be called Take My Wife.
Oh, I like that.
I've spoken to Mike Harding, so possibly he's the most high profile of.
Mike is a big hitter.
Yes, Ralph McTell.
Well, Ralph's not really a comic though. He did have that one comic song, didn't he? That one about the guy who lost all his money and had to sleep out.
The Streets of London.
Yeah, that one.
He did. I'm not certain that that's a comic song. I hadn't really thought about it like that.
You should have asked him.
Well, whether it's supposed to be funny.
Yeah, clear that one up. Who else have you done?
Who else? Roy Chubby Brown.
Roy Chubby Brown.
Yes, Jethro.
Jethro. Pick you up on that. The Southwest Working Men's, what were they, tin miners?
Well, actually, yes. In the interest of being geographically representative in some small way, I thought it was right to be talking to Jethro. Jasper Carrot.
All right, so these people are more like diversity hires.
First of all, tell me a little about how you got involved in the working man's club scene.
Oh, I could do that in one word for you, Mr. Jessup. Butlins.
Butlins.
Did you ever have a Butlins holiday?
I have relatives who've been on them, yes.
So you know what I'm talking about then? They'd gather up lads from Scunthorpe and Telford and places like that. And they would train them very rapidly in scenic arts. And I did that for a few summers. I did Skegness 2 years, and then I got promoted to Bury.
And so what did you have to do as a Redcoat?
Oh, I'd tell jokes. I would jolly people along, sell ice cream. I would retrieve lost children, lifeguarding.
Yeah. And you can swim?
No, I just have to watch that people don't fall in that can't swim. They never asked.
You have passed, don't you, as a stand-up comedian?
Terrified of water I am. I had to sit on this high stool and just hope and pray that nobody fell in. Yes, I was there once, and a man led somebody. Well, I should remember his name because it's my first stage. I can't remember his name. He says, "Oh, you're good. Would you like to do?" I think it was wheelwrights or something like that. My first gig, and I was very nervous, but yeah, I did it. I ended up doing it for 18 months.
So what was your act, your turn in those early days? How did you entertain the ladies and gentlemen?
Well, I had a string of humorous anecdotes.
Proper working men's.
Yeah, that was a proper.
Territory.
5 pints on the tables, leaving rings. They hadn't even have any beer mats.
I mean, what was it like for a young guy like yourself to be going into that world?
Oh, bloody hell. Absolutely nerve-wracking. You have to get them on the audience side, which often involves arm wrestling, pre-match.
Arm wrestling?
Yeah, let them beat you at darts, something like that.
So it sounds like quite a long evening for you.
Oh, bloody hell. You have to prep it. You can't just turn up and tell mother-in-law jokes. It's not Hollywood. You're not separate from the crowd. You're in the crowd. You've got to match them drink for drink.
Did you run across people who then went on to make big careers in television or even film?
I mean, almost all of them. But, some get lucky, some don't. I wouldn't say they were any more talented than me or Freddie Cronkin.
I mean, I might have misheard this, and if I have misheard this, please say this, because my friend Tristram said this, and I thought to myself, well, how on earth would he know? But he's often right about these things. Am I right in thinking that you delivered the eulogy at Bernard Manning's funeral.
Well, I'll have to disavow that because of the stray word the. There wasn't a eulogy. There were many eulogies. You have to understand there were a lot of eulogies going on at the same time after the official eulogies. There wasn't that much time, so we had to eulogise at the same time. It was very much a case of who shouted loudest got the most laughs, really.
So you weren't asked to stand up behind a lectern with a microphone?
Neither was Freddie Cronkin. Neither was that bacon, lettuce and tomato. You remember them? Bet you don't. They were bloody rubbish. And neither was a trio. Have you ever heard of it? Comedy trio. Buchanan and Ball did their bit. But we can't, they're all day. And anyway, their bits weren't very original. I had a lot of original material. And you'd find a tall place where people could see you. And off you go with your eulogy. And as I say, mine was the best received. And I simply pointed out in the eulogy about my relationship with Mr. Manning, Bernard. I always called him Bernard. And how it would have been nothing without me had I not talent spotted him earlier.
So where did you spot him?
I remember going up to Bernard, and I didn't laugh at a lot of them, but my shoulders were going up and down. He's going, there's this packy fella, and I'm gasping on my fags, and a lot of us were choking on our fags because it was going. After that gig, I went straight up to him, and I took him in confidence. I was by the cloakroom where people leave the coats. And I said to him, Bernard, is it Bernard? Can I call you Bernard? And he's a lovely bloke. He says, yes, yes, you can. He's straight away. I said, Bernard, I said, you're fucking good, you are. And it was, a week after that, I think he got on that ITV programme that made him.
What did he say to you when you told him he was very good?
Well, I had a coughing fit.
He coughed?
Yeah, he was a big smoker. And yeah. I think he was... laughing really because he didn't really believe it, I wish I could have been his agent.
Did you say that to him as well?
No, I just thought that now.
Oh, I see. Okay. So can you describe the public?
It was very much an in-group, both culturally and in breeding.
Sort of mostly men?
Yeah.
Sort of between... What sort of ages are we looking at here? Well,
the young lads would often be playing darts as I was performing, so I don't count them. Say I'd be going, your youngest would be 35.
Violent? Was it a violent place?
Oh, yes. Yes. You never knew what was going to happen next. If the comedian's on stage and it doesn't know from 1 minute to the next if he's going to get glassed, he's going to be sweating his balls off to be good. These days, you can... more or less just say some rubbish, wet lettuce stuff and everybody laughs.
So you think that blind terror is likely to keep somebody at the top of their game?
I think blind terror is responsible for some of our greatest artworks, from Shakespeare's sonnets to the medieval cathedrals.
Is progress in this instance a good thing, would you say?
Well, it's all rubbish now, isn't it? Tell me an entertainment performer that's as good as Ronnie Corbett. See, you can't. You have to think about it.
I like John Shuttleworth a great deal. Don't you think he's funny?
He is a fraudulent member of what you might call a deep state faction in the Hampstead Heath bubble, of which you are very much aware, which presents, as Baudrillard correctly pointed out, a facsimile of what, in fact, a Northern working man's comic is, thereby confusing the viewing public systematically into believing a cardboard cutout figure in place of the raw essence of reality, the fake velvet chairs, the beer rings on the table, the smell of woodbines. Not a fan.
Jake Thackeray.
Well, Jake, I have time for. Jake is an underestimated man whose TV career was unjustly truncated by a shift in fashion, as mine would have been if I'd been on telly as well.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think I should have?
Yeah. You haven't asked me about the acts that disappeared. Bacon, lettuce and tomato were rubbish. You don't need to bother about that.
Bacon, lettuce and tomato, they're new on me. We're double act with three of them. How does that work?
Well, exactly. They haven't got the dynamic worked out. The worst thing was One of them got fed up and left, and it was bacon. See, he ended up with lettuce and tomato. Who's going to watch that? I mean, yeah, today with vegan audiences, you might have a chance, but no, they disappeared. You got Julio. Have you heard of Julio Disparu?
No.
Or has he come on with a big pot plant in his mouth?
In his mouth?
Yeah. Not with the pot still hanging off it. You know, like a big nasturtium or something like that.
Yeah.
And you had Frankie Perkins, I think it was. Frankie Perkins.
Frankie Perkins.
He used to do stuff backwards.
Got what sort of stuff?
Well, you know, Gable and Betty did the sand dance, and he'd do it backwards, and it was brilliant. Or he could tell jokes backwards. He'd start with the punchline, and then with the first bit.
So, but he's one of the ones who went by the wayside. You say.
It's sad, isn't it? There's nothing to choose between who gets the limelight and who doesn't. It's a wafer thin line.
So why did that act not catch the public mood, do you think?
I cannot understand it. Butlins, he was one of my early associates in the game. He used to play Patience together. And he said, I can do anything backwards. I used to sit there. Sometimes there'd be an audience with just 6 people in, and I'd be one of them. I'd have gone down and got them. Everybody else left.
When he said to you, I can do anything backwards, did he actually say that, or did he say that backwards?
It wasn't an affliction. It was his act. You could do like the moon landing, you know, and we have come here to the moon to make a big step, or whatever it was. And he could do it both ways. He could do step before, but without thinking, or he could do it this way. He could do, yeah, yep. And you could record it on them old cassettes, rewind it, and it'd come out almost pretty similar to the original phrase. Problem was, you had to wait for him to rewind it. That's when people got bored.
So that was actually part of the stage act, was the thing, having to do the thing with the pencil in the hole of the cassette.
Well, his wife did that. She was in a spangly leotard.
So you think maybe with a bit of tightening that act could have worked?
She should have rewound quicker.
Well, yes, I can see it. So, I mean, you mentioned Fred Cronkin, the name that rings a bell. What was his turn?
If I was to say to you, Freddie Cronkin, to anyone up north, of over 55, I've chanced maybe 50, Freddie Cronkin, and they would go without thinking, and he's dancing turtles.
Of course. He turns up in the biography, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. And the pennies dropped. Freddie was a marvel. I did work with Freddie, yes.
I mean, anything memorable, anything stick out?
Well, I'm not allowed to give away trade secrets, obviously, but the turtles can I just say, they didn't really dance. They didn't really, they were moved by other means.
So this would be to music.
Oh yes. Da 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 da, and the little legs going in and out synchronized.
This is usually music that people would be taking their clothes off to, isn't it? I mean, was Freddie fully clothed whilst he was doing this? I mean, what's the?
Well, he had the pants drop gag at the end. You'd be surprised how many differing bylaws there are up northwest, as he found out to his cost in Trough of Bowland. I admired and laughed at the same time with Freddie. You can't buy that these days.
It sounds to me as if a whole world of wonder has been lost to us. Mr. Foster, your testimony has been absolutely invaluable. Thank you so much for taking us on this little trip down memory lane to what must have been an extraordinary time in British social and cultural history.
Well, it was great. I have a little tear in my eye at the moment, so I remember we'll never see those times again. You've almost taken over the show, George. It felt like I was the guest this week, but it's been great to spill my brains out. Thank you again. We'll play out now with another of those songs you won't be hearing very much if they have their way. Yes, it's Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming